Hi, I'm Sam Sabido and I'm going to teach you everything you need to know about crochet. So we'll start with all the tools and equipment that you're going to need. Firstly, yarn, and then it's a really good idea to buy a whole set of crochet hooks so that you've got all the crochet hooks that you might need. So I like these sets that you get where you start with a 2 or 2.5 mil and then you've got all the sizes you need up to a 6 mil. You're then going to need some scissors when you're ready to fasten off your yarn, a yarn needle. One of these needles that has a particularly big eye is really useful, and it's really helpful to have some interlocking stitch markers. So there's a little set here, and the ones that you're going to need to use a lot are these ones that look a little bit like safety pins and they clip together like that. Let's talk more about yarn. Firstly, you might be wondering why I'm calling it yarn and not wool. In the UK, we tend to call them balls of wool. However, yarn is made from different materials. Some of them are pure wool and others are things like acrylics or cotton. So once you get going with your crochet, you'll notice that crocheters call it yarn. So I'm going to talk about balls of yarn now. You get different weights of yarn, and you'll see when you go into your local yarn shop or if you look online that they're categorized into yarn weights. So starting with a bigger yarn, a chunky for example. Here's a ball of chunky yarn. This yarn is quite thick. Moving down to a slightly thinner yarn, you've got an Aran weight yarn. So this one is a bit thinner. Thinner again, your double knit. And this is one of the most commonly worked with weights of yarn. Lots of blankets and jumpers are made from double knit yarn. And then you get finer yarn again. So we've got a 4-ply here. And then even finer, you've got the lace weights, the 2-plies that look like this. It's almost like working with cotton thread. So that's the weights of the yarn and the categories that you'll find there are sorted into. And your pattern will tell you which weight of yarn you need to be using. The next thing your pattern will tell you is what size hook to use with that yarn. As a general guide, the bigger the yarn, the bigger the hook. So for a chunky yarn, you tend to use a 6mm hook. So that's the biggest one in this set. For an Aran weight yarn, it will be a 5mm hook. For a double knit yarn, you use a 4mm. And then moving right down to these 4-plies and 2-plies, your hook will get smaller. So you might use a 2mm hook for something as fine as this. And your yarn is made from different materials. So this one is 100% acrylic and this chunky is 100% cotton. So your pattern will also tell you whether you need to be working with an acrylic or a wool or a cotton yarn. So let's have a look at some of the others. So this is a pure alpaca yarn that's a 4-ply, and this one is a cotton 4-ply. So they're the same width, they fit in the same category, but they're made from different materials. Likewise, hooks come in different materials. So I've shown you, I would really highly recommend getting just a set to start with so you can get used to using your hooks. But once you get more confident, you can play about with different types of hooks. So you can try maybe a wooden hook. You might want to try one with a handle. So we've got, this is a 4mm that I love to work with that has a handle. So it's easier to hold. So if you've got any issues with movement of your hand, this is a really comfortable one to use. Just to show you, this is a 4mm with a rubber handle, a wooden 4mm hook. You've got your metal 4mm hook there. And finally, here's one with a big handle that's really ergonomic. So you could try a 4mm in that. So they're all the same size, but made from different materials. And just to show you, you can have such a lot of fun when you're choosing your hook. Here's an enormous one that's a 15mm. So you might want to double up some chunky or use some super chunky to work with something like that. So once you've really got going with your crochet, you can have a lot of fun choosing different yarns, different hooks. You might even want to dabble with some sparkly yarn. And these yarn cakes are really fun to work with. They come in multicolours. I think you're going to have a lot of fun with these.